their heyday, and they went and picked up Dennis Rodman. It was kind of like it might have been their last championship. And Rodman was a wild child. This is back when he was, just uncontrollable. He was out of his mind. And he flew to Las Vegas and was a part of like a wrestling event in Vegas during the NBA season. And like he was in the ring like during the season. And there was like this whole big issue about, oh my gosh, should he be doing that? And it was kind of like Rodman was kind of held to a different standard. He was the wild child, so he wasn't expected to be buttoned up like everybody else. But the story from what I hear is that Rodman was in Vegas and Jordan flew to Vegas and got him on the plane to get him back to play the next game. And that is, nobody made a big deal about it because they won and because they were winning. So again, like I said, because the Giants are losing right now and the season feels lost again, that is why there's even more heat on all this stuff. Yeah. So, I think you kind of look. Let's let it kind of let the embers kind of chill out a little bit. I know everybody's kind of emotional with all that stuff and with what's going on, and I get it. And it's all derived from passion. But that was kind of something that creeped up, and it was like nobody had any issue with Rodman and with the Bulls doing that because they were winning.
Because they were winning and they were taking care of business on the court. And I think everyone knows their own limits and their own what they're capable of as individuals, and has their own priorities in order. And then you kind of go from there. YouTube commenter Emmanuel Mora wants to know how I got these concussions, speaking of playing hurt. And so I'm not going to give you a full recount of all of them because there are a lot. But the very first one was when I was a kid. I was sitting on a tile floor and somebody pulled my legs and I went like that, hit the back of my head and was really, really hard. And then some from a car accident. I went through a windshield one time. That was not fun.
Ouch.
I got hit in the head with a football. That was a little bit, that was here. Yeah. And most recently, sometimes I faint. So some of them have come from that. And most recently, I started the season with a couple staples in the back of my head because I fainted and hit my head on a rock. And TKO, but not a TKO, just a KO for that one. Anyway. KO. We make light of it because it has to be funny, so it's not scary. But it happens, and as somebody who's experienced several of these, you kind of go through the motions and your own limits in a way. And I'm fortunate that my job does not entail getting hit by 300-pound men, because if you are concussed and you hit your head again, that can be very dangerous. And so fortunately, I just, the lights and the cameras and all that. And sometimes I'm better than others. I remember the football one. I did a show with you.
We had you on the DL for a while after that. Yeah. And the football one, I feel like that one lingered for a while.
It did.
I think the other one that happened in the summertime. So I think you had a little more time to recover.
Yeah. And at that point, I was an old wily vet with dealing with those symptoms. I'm like, all right, let's power through. But
I think you were more upset about the hat on that one.
It did end up looking like roadkill. It was ruined. A little bloody. It was my Kurt Schilling sock moment, though. It was pretty good. No, I remember that football one. I did a show with you, Shaun, and there was a moment where I was like, I'm good, I'm clear. And Don Sperling kept looking at me. He's like, are you sure? You look a little glassy-eyed.
Little deer in headlights.
And then we got on the set, and I just remember looking at you just like, please keep talking. Like, I got that right now.
It's the lights.
It's the lights, the sounds. The
lights kind of.
All of it. Yeah, so would not wish that on anyone. It's a little bit more than a headache, but again, Jackson Dart out on the field. You can see videos of him stretching on social media right now and working his way back. 201-939-4513 is the phone number. Just want to remind you all, the Giants official connected TV streaming app Giants TV brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. Let's head back to the phone lines. What a day, Shaun. Not only do we get Wilson, but we also get Charlie. We are getting some all-time BBK callers on the show today. Charlie in Maine, welcome to the show. Thanks for calling in. How you doing?
Hey, Madelyn. How are you? Hey, Shaun.
What's up, Charlie?
Hey, this is like tag team here. Your worst nightmare, Wilson and me. Hey, I got a question for you, Madelyn. I saw your podcast. Heard it was great. I appreciate it. You do a great job with it.
Thank you. Charlie, a big fan of her playbook. We just recorded another episode this morning.
Oh, nice. Did you? I'll have to watch it. Hey, my question is, can you can you fake it? You know maybe that you've got symptoms, but somebody like Dart, who really wants to play, can he fake it and say, "No, I don't have a headache. No, I'm good." You know, I mean, well, how do they know that this guy is telling them the truth, or do they take brain scans and figure it out that he isn't? I mean,
I would liken a concussion to a sprained ankle, right? Let's do. When it first happens, you're like, "Ow, that hurts," but before the swelling kicks in, you're like, "I can move my ankle. It looks normal. It feels normal." However, there are physical symptoms that when they bring you in for a concussion test, including in your pupils and the way your eyes move, that can tell. Even if you say, "I'm fine," and you say you feel fine, if your eyes and your pupils move in a certain way, that is a signal that there is something to more there. But what I would say too is, you know, sometimes when it first happens, before the swelling kicks in, because a concussion is essentially when your brain hits the side of your skull and your brain swells. So much like a sprained ankle, before it gets fully swollen, you still have a little bit more of your faculties and a little bit more of your understanding until that sets in, and then it starts to be like, oh, now it feels, you know, once the ankle swells up, or your head, not actual head, but your brain. And that's when a little bit of those symptoms start to set in. So maybe not immediately, but, you know, shortly thereafter. I mean, Victor Cruz will tell a story sometimes when, you know, he got hit in a game and he got called over to do the concussion test, and they were asking him all these questions and he was getting all the answers right. And so they're like, "Okay, great, you're good to get back in the game." And he goes, "What game?" And they're like, "Oh, okay, maybe not." And so sometimes, you know, you're like, "Oh yeah, I can tell you what year it is. I can tell you who the president is. I can tell you what, you know, what my middle name is," all that kind of stuff, because these things come to you. But there are certain things that will happen, but mostly physiologically, that a medical trained staff will look at you and will be able to see, okay, there's something wrong, which is when, you know, even if you come over to the sideline and you're like, "Yeah, my head hurts and I can answer all these questions," right? There are physical signs that will show, okay, maybe it's not safe for you to get back in the game.
Yeah. Listen, Charlie, let's preface this whole conversation with, we are not doctors. We did
not a doctor.
But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Look,
the
concussion
women,
thing. This is why it's such a tough thing to handle, because it's not like any other injury. Like what Matt was talking about with an ankle, or you're talking about brain scans. There are no brain scans that you can do for a concussion. Well, the only way you can really test the brain is post-mortem. So
you do get a CAT scan to see if there's any brain bleed.
Well, I mean, if you have a severe concussion, you'll get a CAT scan. But they're not giving CAT scans to everybody that has a concussion, or, you know, that thinks that they may have had a concussion. That's not happening on the medical tent, or, you know, at the game day. But, you know, it's similar to like a field sobriety test, right? Yeah. So like you get pulled over and they have protocols that they go through to see, is your brain functioning like it normally would? So there are certain things that they will go through, like Madelyn was talking about. But I think today's player is different. You know, 20 years ago, you would not go to the trainer and say, you know, something's not off, or my head hurts. Like that was not how we handle it. We have progressed, and we are in a totally different area when it comes to TBI and when it comes to concussions and the protocol. So there is much more self-reporting now, and I think that players are more honest with their symptoms because they realize that the long-term damage that they could be doing. Now, it's different than playing through, Aaron Rodgers is going to play through a fractured wrist. You know, you're playing through a high ankle sprain or an MCL. You know, these are ligaments. These are things where you can actually MRI them, you can X-ray them, and you can find out, here is what has happened. Okay, what is the percentage of that, you know, I can make this worse, or this can be a long-term thing. So I think it's in a totally different environment with that. Now, the concussion stuff, everybody responds differently, everybody reacts differently. But for Jackson Dart, clearly he was not himself after it happened. Now, you know, something happens, boom, you kind of get your bell rung. You're like, all right, I'm good. You go out, you run a couple more plays, and then maybe you go to the sidelines, and now you're like, you know what? I feel off. Something feels weird. And Dable even mentioned it. He's like, I noticed that he was acting a little bit off, a little bit strange. So when people see those behaviors, boom, all right, now you're into it, and now they're evaluating you. The one thing that I know the NFL does do is every player before the start of the season, when you take an annual physical, there is a neuropsych exam that you take that tests your reaction time, and they go through and they get a baseline. So once you have come back to your facility, they will put you through that same test to see, where are you? Has your baseline changed? Is you know, are there things that are showing up that is abnormal from where your baseline was when you had this exam a couple months ago. So those are all things that they take into play, and those are ways that they could try to figure out, all right, there's clearly been an injury. To what extent, we don't really know, but it's all symptom-based. The other thing that I will add is on every sideline in every NFL game, there is a neurosurgeon, and that is mandatory by the NFL, and he is on the sideline for these exact situations. If there is a head injury, he is the one that goes over there, and he is the one that assesses where they're at. He's the one that's in the medical tent and evaluating all that. So, look, the NFL has definitely made this a priority to them.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you see a player that is exhibiting those type of symptoms, we now know that these things are cumulative. So if you have one, you are more susceptible to having another one if you have not completely healed and recovered from the previous one. So I think that's where we're at with this situation with Jackson Dart.
Yeah, because he was in the blue tent 4 times for concussion.
Right, but that doesn't mean he had a concussion every time. So sometimes you get a hit. There's a big collision, and the referees down on the field have to say, "Hey, you know what? They get signal from the league. Look, there was a big hit.
Yeah.
All right, you're going to the medical tent. You get a concussion. There was no concussion. All right, there was no issue there. But because there was a big hit, and the referees saw something, you could have been holding your arm. You could have been down, hey, I got the wind knocked out of me, but they see a big hit and they see a player get up, and now you go to the medical tent and you go through that check and you're fine, you're good. So even though you went in the tent, it doesn't necessarily mean that you had a concussion or that there was a head injury.
That, but why, when he went into the tent and he came out and they let him out, and then he went and played 2 more plays, so somebody in the tent didn't figure it out that this guy had a concussion.
No, that's not accurate. Because he, like I said, they went through the test, the field test, all right, and he showed no symptoms, no signs. And then he went out there and started running around, and now I was like, oh, you know what? Okay, now that I'm running around, I feel something feels off. And so to Madelyn's point, boom, it happened. You go over there, you're going through all the tests. Nothing revealed itself at that moment.
Much like a sprained ankle at first, it's like it looks fine.
You know what? Then it kind of, all right, hey, you know what? Now that I'm moving around, now that I'm calling the plays, and now that I have to kind of, recall things, or I've got to speak and verbalize. The more that he did that, the more that, now all of a sudden the symptoms reveal themselves.
Right. So Madelyn, what you're saying is sometimes it takes a little while for the brain to start swelling up. Well,
again,
why don't they not let the player go back in for at least a series to find out if that's going to happen to that player? Why do they let them go right back in 2 minutes later?
Well, again, I'm no medical, I'm no doctor, and I think also too, sometimes maybe the play that it happened, like for example, how many times have you been like, wow, I feel really sick, let me take a COVID test and see if it's COVID, and it's not COVID, and then maybe a week later it is COVID. Did you always have COVID, or did you get it later on? I don't know. Sometimes you feel that, there's a lot of nuance to it. It's an imperfect science, but the NFL is doing its best to make sure that the players are protected and put in a position to be able to self-report too in a safe space of like, okay, maybe we caught this, maybe we didn't. It's an imperfect science, all of it. And, whether you hold them out, because, there's going to be another situation where a guy got the wind knocked out of him, and what do you want to do? Just hold him out for a whole quarter just in case?
No, I didn't say a whole quarter.
Right.
But you can play it safe. But anyway, that's not why I really called. But since it was brought up, I just, But my main thing is with Winston, he had 4 plays that should have been intercepted. They were interception, turnover-worthy plays. The guys dropped it. Green Bay dropped it. If they just caught 2 of those, this game wouldn't even have been close. So, you can say Winston, lets the guys and he throws it and he lets them go after the ball and da-da-da. But if he should have had 5 interceptions, or maybe if they were counting the last one as the 4th, I don't know. But he definitely could have had 4 easily picks in that game. And this game would not even have been close. But that's all I wanted to say about that.
The Packers were struggling to catch the ball on both sides of the ball because they also had about 3 or 4 drops. I think Romeo Doubs had a couple of drops
they had
too.
A whole bunch of drops
we all saw those plays too, and it was like, oh my gosh, we got lucky. And you know what? Like
exactly. But, so, I just think, I like Winston. I mean, I like the guy, but is he going to change the direction of this team? we're headed for 2-11.
Nobody said
That's
he would.
where we're headed.
Nobody said he was, but he was playing because Jackson Dart was hurt. So you know what? I
Oh,
thought
I
he did a
know,
good
I know.
job. Like, look, every game Jameis Winston he has shown us he's going to make a couple throws that are dicey, and that's just the way he plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much for the call. We
Okay.
got a couple more to get to before we run out of time here. Giants fans, with another impactful draft and free agency class in the books, that means it's full steam ahead to the 2025 season, which we're in the midst of. Take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Catch all the action at MetLife Stadium with an exciting home schedule on the horizon. And with a membership, you'll also stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days, with exclusive member access and benefits. To learn more about a New York Giants season ticket membership, visit giants.com/tickets, 201-939-4513. Let's go back to the phones. Joe in Connecticut. Joe, welcome to the show. You're on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Madelyn and Shaun. I love the show. I'm a longtime Giant fan, 72 years old. Go back to black and white TV, Y.A. Tittle, Frank Gifford, Sam Huff. And I don't know if you remember Kyle Rote, but Scat has his number. He was one of my favorite players, number 44.
Love it.
But I wanted to make 2 points. I played safety in high school and junior college, and I got concussed a few times. Go off the sideline, the doctor would say, "How many fingers do we have up?" Give you some ammonia and go back in. And I don't know. These players, I noticed a couple of end zone plays, like on the 3-yard line. I was watching some of these games. They shoulder bump instead of wrapping. How are they supposed to get a guy down in the 3-yard line shoulder bumping? He's going to bump right into the end zone. These guys' legs are strong. And the second point I wanted to know the tush push. If they vote that down, okay, does that mean the scrum? That means no more linemen pushing? I mean, this is not football, man. Guy catches the ball on the 20 and you push him to the goal line, to the 5-yard line? I mean, that's ridiculous, man. What am I watching here?
Yeah, it's definitely a play that has created some controversy. Thanks so much for the call, Joe, and thanks for being such a longtime fan and listener.
Joe,
push is
listen,
hard to officiate.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to all the things that you mentioned, like the game has changed, obviously, from, I grew up the same way. Like you got your bell rung, like you saw stars, took a couple seconds, and then you were back in the game. Things have progressed. We know now more than we knew back then. Just like when I was a kid, we didn't have car seats. Now we know more. All right, so we, it wasn't that we were negligent back then. We just didn't know what we know now, and we have, better science and better data and better awareness. With regard to tackling, dude, I'm with you. I don't understand that. I mean, I coach my son's football team, and I'm trying to get them to wrap up. That's one of the things we talk about. Bite the ball, wrap up around the hips. You don't come in there and just shoulder a guy and try to knock him down. So I don't understand that too. It's frustrating to see that as well, because I know these guys have been coached up to wrap, and they're just not doing it. So, look, fine them. If I'm a defense coordinator, look, if you come up and you make a hit and you don't wrap up, I'm going to fine you. Like, you could find a way. Like, we'll find out how much it really means to you when we start taking money from you. With the final point about the tush push, look, I've hated the quarterback sneak my entire life, because as a center, everybody ends up on top of you. It's like a pileup. It's a mosh pit. And, I've sprained an ankle on a quarterback sneak before. Guys have gotten hurt. But it is part of football. I think the Eagles have taken it to a whole nother level with making it a rugby-like play. I think that there is a science to it, because clearly they do it better than anybody else. They have found a way to do it better than anybody else. They clearly practice it. They coach it. They have it down to a science, and nobody can seem to stop it. It is frustrating because, it's like the crane kick that Miyagi taught Danielson. Like, if done properly, no one can defend. And we still have not been able to defend it. So I think we have to be careful. Like, are people upset because nobody can stop it, or are people upset because
credit to
people
the
are getting
Giants
hurt?
defense that did stifle it on 3 straight plays on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like the unicorn opportunity. But I think when you look at it, like, people are saying we got to ban this play from football. Okay, are we trying to ban it because we don't like it visually, we don't like it optically, we don't like it because it's happening to our teams and we can't seem to stop it? That's not a reason to ban a play. If you can prove scientifically, and the NFL has look at injuries. All right, that's why the kickoff rule has changed multiple times. That's why they've changed the way that field goals and PATs are handled. You can't rush the long snapper, and you can't push on block like you used to be able to do. So you can't do that on defense. And I know there was some argument about why can we do it on offense. So you have to look at if there's an injury, if this is definitely creating a higher percentage of injury, then I think it's a no-brainer. But I don't know that data is there yet, and I don't know what that looks like. But I think when you look at
that, and also the fact that it's hard to officiate, and as we've seen in that Giants game where they blew the whistle for forward progress, and there was questions around that, or the questions around, okay, are they jumping early? Who's jumping early? Can you really see who's jumping early with how close everyone is in that scrum? When you see, on the national broadcast, the camera zooming in and showing a guard perhaps crossing that line of scrimmage a little before the ball is snapped, those moments where it makes it challenging to officiate it, because much like injuries, the NFL's 1A priority is the integrity of the game as well. And if they can't keep the officiating to keep it the integrity there, that is the only other thing that I could see being a cause raised in this offseason.
I hear what you're saying about that, and that may be part of the conversation. But I will say this: based on the track record of the NFL, they don't care about being tough to officiate, because some of the things that they have allowed to happen as new rule changes has made it really hard on these officials. And I feel like they are in a damned if we do, damned if we don't kind of scenario a lot of times, way too often. And it's hard to be an official and to call these plays in real time. So, that play with the scrum, you can't see the ball. It's hard to really determine all that stuff. But I think the conversation with what you're saying about, I don't think they're going to ban the tush push, but I think the conversations are, in that situation, because you brought up if a receiver catches the ball, say you're on the 10-yard line and your tight end catches the ball on the 2-yard line. And now as an offensive lineman, I'm hustling down there and I push the pile into the end zone. That is different than the tush push or than the quarterback sneak. And the reason why is because it happens out on the field of play. So if there is a tweak to this whole, do we change the way you can do quarterback sneak? Maybe it is that you cannot aid a runner if that runner is on the line of scrimmage. You cannot do it in the backfield. You can't do it at the line of scrimmage. But if it happens outside of the line of scrimmage, outside of the quarterback tackle box, if that happens out there in the field of play, then that is allowed. So those are some of the tweaks that I know they're having conversations about. Do we limit it, and do we put the verbiage in there that it's allowed out in the regular field of play with a receiver, tight end, or running back that has caught a pass, or even a quarterback that has scrambled out and now is running? Now can you aid that runner across the first down or the end zone for a touchdown, as opposed to happening behind the center on the line of scrimmage where now all of a sudden there's a huge pileup? So, look, it's a conversation that I think is going to continue. Do I expect them to ban that play? No, I don't think so, because I don't think that the data is there from an injury standpoint for them to say, we're going to take this out of the game.
Yeah, I can see that. And, we'll see. I'm sure will be brought up in league meetings in this offseason, and that conversation will continue. But how it'll shake out remains to be seen. 201-939-4513. Let's go back for a final call. Logan in New Jersey. Logan, thanks for calling in. You're on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Hi, thank you. So what I want to know is, why has there not been a change at the defensive coaching position yet?
Great question. I don't know.
You have amazing players. I feel like Coach Shane Bowen, great guy, no disrespect, but I feel like he almost should have gone when Dable went. Is there a reason as to why? Do you think he should stay? If they clean house, do you think?
Neither one of us.
Do you think he should stay next year?
Neither one of us have that answer. We don't know why. We don't know what the conversations were. I'll speak from previous situations where I've heard that, a head coach comes in on a Monday after a loss and they are told, you need to fire your offensive coordinator or you need to fire your defensive coordinator. And they have said, I'm not doing that. And then they said, okay, well, then you're fired. So I've heard of that happening. I don't know what went down. I don't know what the conversations were. But I think there's evidence on both sides. Like, if you wanted to make a change, I think there's evidence out there that you would be justified in doing that. I think if you were going to make a head coaching change, what you don't want to do is make a head coaching change and a defensive coordinator change.
Right, because
and
there's
now
just
we
no
have
stability.
Now we're scrambling in multiple areas. Look, I think, the NFL is tough, and I know everybody wants to, hey, we fire this guy, fire that guy. Well, listen, I'm never been a fan of firing a head coach during the NFL season. And the reason why is because when you fire a head coach, somebody else has to do his job. Somebody else has to step up and now do their job and this new job. Mm-hmm. And, that's tough. That makes it tough on the coaches. They're already stressed out. They're already, not sleeping and, working crazy hours, and, they're grinding their way through it. So, there is something to be said for that. I don't know what went down with the conversations, and we don't know, what maybe their conversations were about. Here's where we're at. Here's where we need to see improvement, or this is happening, or, I don't know. But, I think that a lot of people were, look, there was a lot of people that came up to me and said, look, I was surprised that it was Daboll and not Shane Bowen. And, I don't think either one was the right way, and I don't think either way, you could say either way wasn't the wrong way either. A lot of times, you have to make a change just to kind of put everybody else on notice too, and players included. So, look, there's some validity what you're saying. I don't think either one of us are really privy to enough to answer to you why this happened or why this didn't happen.
All right. Okay. Do you believe Bowen deserves to come back next year?
Next year? Well, look, I mean, I don't think anybody knows what's happening next year.
Yeah.
Like, what, let's get through this season and let's figure stuff out. There could be a whole new staff here. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a little premature to single out anybody on the staff as far as who's going to be here next year, because nobody knows.
Right. And oftentimes, too, a new head coach comes in and they bring in their own people top to bottom. So remains to be seen who will stay, who will go, what the status will be with that.
I will say this.
And it's kind of I will say it's above my pay grade to make that decision.
Yeah, that's not up to us. But I will say this. Brian Billick, who I used to work with and did a ton of shows with, he was a great coach. He's a great man. He used to have this saying, the things they hire you for are the things they fire you for. And I never understood it the first time he said it to me, and then the more it kind of marinated and he explained it to me, Shane Bowen was brought here to stop the run.
Yeah.
Right? When he was hired as a defensive coordinator, this guy, when he was at Tennessee, they did a great job stopping the run. They were great at red zone. All right? Those are two of the things that we have not been good at. So, the things that we hired you for were, this was supposed to be your strength, and when they're not, now those are the reasons why you get fired. So, that happens in the NFL all the time. You see offensive coaches that, oh my gosh, this guy's phenomenal. He's a heck of an offensive coordinator. We're bringing you here to be a great offensive coach, and the offense sucks. And it's like, all right, well, that's why you got fired. We hired you because you were a good offensive coach, and your offense is the worst. So, those are things that I know are frustrating, because that was kind of Shane Bowen's calling cards. Where, hey man, we're going to be great against the run, and we're going to be great in the red zone, and that just has not transpired.
Yeah. And thanks for the call, Logan. Thanks for calling in. Listen, that the thing is that we've got another opportunity this week. We haven't really touched on the fact that we're playing the Lions on Sunday, but that game will be happening. And Giants-Lions in Detroit. It's a team with a lot of offensive firepower, and
not exactly the team that you want to play if when you're hanging by a thread and you're struggling to score points.
Hey, if you can stop them on fourth down, maybe.
Yeah, well, we saw the key last week.
Work for the Eagles last week, so maybe.
Yeah, were they 0 for 4, 0 for 5 on fourth down?
0 for 5 on fourth down.
This Detroit Lions team, look, Dan Campbell has built the Detroit Lions in a way that I think a lot of teams are aspiring to be. Like, they are just a tough team. We know them very well. We had joint practices with them a year ago in training camp. They are very physical. They're a physical team up front. They've got a really good offensive line. They've got two studs. Sonic and Knuckles in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So this is going to be a big challenge for a Giants defense that is struggling. I think the other thing that kind of really sticks out at you is the Giants play more man defense than anybody else. Jared Goff has been an assassin against man defense for the last couple of years. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he's got an unbelievable touchdown to interception ratio against man coverage. So this will be a very big test for this Giants defense. And then offensively, Aiden Hutchinson, I know he's coming off of that, grotesque injury from last year, but, he's got 7.5 sacks. He's a stud. This is going to be another good challenge for this Giants offense. And, you mentioned it, playing in Detroit on the road, there will be elements there. The crowd is going to be, they're going to be on their feet the entire time. It's going to be loud. You're going to be in silent count. When we always say you go on the road, you got to start fast. So if it's Jackson Dart or if it's Jameis, the offense has got to do what they did last week against Green Bay. You score a touchdown on the opening drive. All right, now all of a sudden, you kind of, people are sitting on their hands a little bit more, and you kind of give yourself a chance.
Right, and hopefully it'll be a big challenge for both sides of the ball, especially the defense, which we're watching guys work their way back from injury. Kayvon Thibodeau not out at practice today, according to reports, not spotted out there. Darius Slayton, Paulson Adebo working on the side. Paulson Adebo, of course, dealing with that knee injury. Was warming up before the game on Sunday against the Packers. Wasn't able to go. Was a scratch then. We'll see what his status is.
Yeah, that'll be big because Amon-Ra St. Brown is a stud.
Yeah.
And Jameson Williams is a deep threat on every play.
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle for Jameson Williams is his touchdown cellies. Are they going to cause a flag again?
That should be an easy fix.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, that's a wrap for our show today. Thanks for tuning in to a Wednesday edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We've been coming to you live from the Giants podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. BBK is part of the Giants podcast platforms everywhere, and giants.com/podcast. You can see an archive of our show there, as well as on the Giants YouTube page. For the Super Bowl champion Shaun O'Hara, and for the War Eagles Super Bowl champion Coach Shaun O'Hara, I'm Madelyn Burke. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.